Well, welcome back. My name is Paul Boehnke. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with you these 7 gateways to more purpose and joy. Today being the first one, sometimes known as the victim. Now, if you will recall from the first video, I talked about the fact that I'll be using the words gateways, perspectives, and energy interchangeably, because really what we're talking about is a combination of all 3 of these. The other thing that you may remember is that we talked about 2 basic kinds of energy that we'll be talking about here. One is anabolic and the other is called catabolic. Now, anabolic energy is that energy that is constructive, expanding, fueling, healing, and growth-oriented. Catabolic energy is the draining, resisting, and contracting energy. And as I said in the last video, none of these 7 levels are better or worse than any other. They all have advantages and disadvantages, and we'll explore how all of those advantages and disadvantages play out throughout this series. So, let's get going. If you haven't already downloaded the energetic self-perception chart, you can do that now, and we'll be referring to it throughout the videos on this series. The energetic self-perception chart is a visual representation of the 7 gateways or energy levels. And it's called the energetic self-perception chart because it's based on how you perceive yourself. Every level has many thoughts associated, but the core thought is listed here in this left-hand column. In the center column, there are 7 core feelings that go along with those thoughts. Now again, of course, there are a lot more emotions that are associated with each level, but the core feeling is listed here. And to the right are the results or actions you experience when you think and feel a certain way. So the left is the cause and the right is the effect. Now, in the center ring of this chart contains the first 2 levels or the first 2 gateways that we'll be talking about. You'll also see some other words there, like the big word self right in the middle, refers to the fact that in the first 2 levels, which are both primarily catabolic in nature, the perspective is always looking inward at the self. The smaller word to the left, ego, refers to, well, a relatively weak sense of ego or self, which is why our perspective at these levels is always inward looking. We'll talk about some more of these words as we go. So, let's talk about this first level. This first level is the lowest level of catabolic energy. And when you're experiencing this, you feel like a victim to the events or the thoughts or the beliefs that you have. You no longer feel like you're really at the cause of life, but you are at the effect of life. Hence, the core thought is that of a victim. Level 1 energy includes thoughts and feelings of guilt, fear, worry, self-doubt, lack of confidence, and low self-esteem. And you can experience all of these gateways both in your life in general or in any specific situation or issue. Now, the result of level 1 energy is that people feel as though they have a lack of choice or symptoms. They feel apathetic because they believe there's nothing they can do to improve the situation. Now, level 1 energy results in avoidance of situations or difficult issues, and also it makes it hard for people to make decisions because you feel helpless to make a difference. Consequently, the result or action at this level is one of lethargy. Now, emotionally, this first gateway, it feels bad, and the amount of desire, engagement, and action for life is very low. Now, you can see this level of energy show up in people who seem devoid of emotion and are apathetic. You know, at work, they might just try to sort of make it through the day, avoid any confrontation, distract themselves from what's really at hand. They tend to take everything personally, and they may feel that they're always being persecuted for mistakes, either theirs or others, and they often keep their feelings and their opinions to themselves. Now at home, they may at times be victims of an emotional or physically abusive partner, and their relationships generally are at best codependent. And even when people experiencing this level of energy are with someone, they might feel like they are alone. They can sometimes sabotage relationships, believing that they're really not worthy of having a good one. Now, I'm going to read some statements here that are typical that you might hear from someone experiencing this level of energy, this sort of victim perspective of the world. And what I want you to do is to pay attention to how you feel hearing all these statements. I hate myself. I hate my life. Life is futile. Life is purposeless. It's just one humiliation after another. Everyone is after me. I'm pitiful. I'm worthless. I'm powerless. No one listens or cares about me. I'm not capable, and failure follows me everywhere I go. Why bother? Nothing changes. Now, if you were listening deeply to these sentences, you may start feeling kind of heavy and a bit low energy yourself. Just being in the vicinity of this sort of energy can really pull you into it. It actually makes me think a little bit of the Dementors in the Harry Potter series, these magical creatures which can show up and suck all the joy, all the happiness, all the life out of anything in its vicinity. And did you notice how all the statements had to do with the self? You know, this perspective really doesn't have room for an awareness of others. It doesn't have room to be taking someone else's perspective into account. It's very focused on the self. And if you recall that word right in the center of that first circle, self. And this is an example of how that really plays out. Now, you will also notice the word needing. Often people at this level have a real strong sense of neediness. And this word in the center of this circle reflects that. This feeling of neediness, or when people use the word I need, this is a clear clue that we're dealing with catabolic energy. So who do you know in your life that experiences this victim kind of energy often? There are people who are often complaining about everything but seem to have no interest in actually making a difference about it. What is it really like to be around them? Do you find it attractive and energizing? Or do you find yourself feeling kind of bad, maybe a bit like a victim yourself around them? Do you find that this energy attracts you or repels you? For most people, this energy is pretty off-putting. It's not something they really want to be around. And what's interesting is people who are experiencing this first gateway, they often find themselves alone. They feel alone, they find themselves to be alone, they feel left out, they find themselves being left out. And their energy is actually creating that. When you notice how sort of negative it is to be around this sort of energy, you find yourself avoiding that person. And so that energy creates their own reality. If you recall also in the first video, I talked a little bit about quantum mechanics and how the quantum physics tells us that it's our perceptions and our thoughts that create our reality, not the other way around. And this is a perfect example of how that happens. People have a thought of, I'm alone, I'm pitiful, nothing goes right for me. I feel so alone, everyone's against me. Remember all those statements that I read earlier. That's the message that they project out. And that pushes people away. And so they create their reality of being alone, of being left out, of being a victim, and at the effect of circumstances. So again, it's the thoughts and the energies that we have that create our reality, not the other way around. And this point of it not being the other way around This is a very powerful point that I really want you to hear. For if you find yourself feeling left out and alone, the question to ask yourself is, in what way am I creating this reality with my thoughts and my perspectives? What is the thought that creates my emotion that results in my experience? Now remember that none of these gateways is better or worse than another. They all have advantages and they all have disadvantages. The disadvantages of this first gateway, well, they can be a little bit obvious. People with this kind of energy really experience very little to no engagement in any tasks or roles that they are playing. They find it very difficult to effect any real change in their life. And it's nearly impossible to lead either themselves or others. So those disadvantages can be pretty obvious. But what about the advantages at this level? What could they possibly be? Well, the first advantage is that with this sort of energy, it is possible to take care of yourself, to keep yourself safe from harm. If you find yourself in a dangerous situation in which you have virtually no control, using this gateway, you can hide yourself in order to stay safe. This level also makes it possible to receive attention and sympathy from others, something that we all need from time to time. And the other advantage is that the person experiencing this level of energy, they of course feel that they have no control over anything. And so they sort of see themselves as being off the hook for whatever negative events happen in their life. And this is the payoff. This is what tends to get people stuck in this place, is they say, look, I haven't got any choice or control about this anyway, and so I'm off the hook. Whatever's happening to my life is not my fault. There's nothing I can do about it. Which, of course, is the opposite of what quantum physics tells us. That we have a huge amount of control over the reality, the experience that we have. And it's using our thoughts that help us to do this. Now, we all experience this gateway from time to time. But the questions that we need to ask ourselves when we're here are these. How does level 1 energy show up for me? And what are some of the circumstances in which I experience this first gateway? And what triggers this level of energy in me? Now, if you're wanting to move yourself out of this level into something a little higher, there are some ways to do that. The first thing you need to do is you need to shift yourself being aware of the present moment. You know, when we feel like a victim to events, we're thinking about things that happened in the past. Something happened and I'm a victim. But if you can get rid of that past, well, just let it go. It does not need to control you now. It has nothing to do with the present. Find yourself in the present moment. That's the first thing you can do to release some of that catabolic energy from this first gateway. The next thing you need to do is you need to ferret out what are the messages that my inner critic is telling me when I'm feeling this way. Often those messages boil down to some version of, I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I am not wealthy enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not skilled enough. There's some way in which I'm not enough. Well, the thing is about all those messages is that they're lies. We are all enough. You know, the universe does not put desires in us that we are not fully capable of achieving. We just have to realize that worth in ourselves, that we really are capable. You know, the energy of this first gateway, it makes it very difficult sometimes to see that worth. It makes it difficult to see another perspective than what those messages tell us. It makes it difficult to understand that these messages from our inner critic are lies. But how do we change our perspective on that? Well, the first one, we can ask ourselves, how important is my life to me? How important is my life to me? And is my life worth fighting for? And if you're able to answer even a small amount of yes with that in the moment, that will immediately shift your energy to a bit higher level. So that's the first gateway. Now, we've just spent quite a few minutes talking about some pretty unpleasant low-level catabolic energy. And you might find yourself feeling a little bit heavy and worthless at the moment. And so, as we close out this video, I'm going to show you some images that have more anabolic energy in them, just to sort of counterbalance what we've been talking about. Again, thank you for watching this video. My name is Boehnke, and I look forward to talking with you in episode 3.